Fallout New Vegas should not exist, and in this video I will explain the exact reasoning as to why. When we hear certain issues that people have with the Fallout franchise, it often trickles down to, that conflicts with the current lore. That doesn't actually seem possible. Logically, that doesn't make any sense at all. These are all points that people tend to bring up when discussing issues they have with the newer Fallout entries. For example, we have the highly unrealistic kid in a fridge quest from Fallout 4, where we find Billy, a now ghoul child, trapped inside of a fridge. The issue with this quest is that he was not recently put into the fridge. No. See, Billy had been in the fridge since before the bombs fell. Knowing this, we can now render this quest as lore-breaking, non-canon, and overall impossible to the Fallout franchise as we know it. How, you may ask? Well, it's simple. Ghouls need to eat. We often see them eating across all of the games, and now in the Fallout TV show, we see a ghoulified Cooper Howard eating meat, tomatoes, and heck, he even eats another ghoul at one point.
Damn, y'all ain't got me working up an appetite.
Well, I've seen theories thrown out there that ghouls don't necessarily need to eat, and that they can simply get their nutrients from radiation. The only reason for some of them eating is to gain way more nutrients than they normally would be able to, if they're in an environment with less radiation. This would make Billy being in the fridge and being able to survive so long actually make sense and be possible. He is in the southern part of the map, where it's constantly raining and is extremely close to the glowing sea, so he will always have water seeping into the fridge, as well as radiation from the water and rad storms. Also, we've seen the kid in the fridge thing done before in Fallout. I see it as a running joke personally. In the TV show, Child Maximus can be seen exiting a fridge that he took cover in when Shady Sands was nuked, and then in New Vegas, right at the beginning of the game, we see a skeleton in a fridge with a fedora, a reference to Indiana Jones. This is part of the Wild Wasteland trait, however, but that's just how I've always seen the kid in the fridge quest anyway. A Wild Wasteland event that is simply put there to give people a laugh because of how outrageous or weird it might be. Now, of course, the Wild Wasteland trait is not in Fallout 4, but reason with me for a moment and try and put yourself in the state of mind that Fallout has and always will throw bits of over-the-top wackiness into it. Moving on from that, we also now have the fact that ghouls in the TV show require a special type of serum to prevent themselves from going feral.
You don't get these. You turn into one of those?
This is brand new, and many will consider this change to be lore-breaking. An easy way to explain it would simply be to say that since it's been over 219 years since the bombs fell, the main ghouls that would need to be taking this serum would be the ghouls who have been in that state since the Great War happened. It just makes sense if you look at it that way. This is the furthest we have ever been in the timeline, and it's very well possible that ghouls have found a new way to prevent from going feral. I'd bet that Coop would have gone feral a long time ago if this serum wasn't found or invented, as we could see him start to turn in one of the episodes of the show, but Lucy gives him the serum and saves his life. Yet another issue people will say is lore-breaking and impossible is the bombing of Shady Sands. When people were shown the timeline in episode 6 of the show, most of them misinterpreted it and took the fall of Shady Sands to mean the nuclear bombing of Shady Sands, rather than clearly seeing that there is an arrow pointing away from the fall and over to the next point in the timeline, which is when the actual bomb dropped. The date was intentionally left out of the timeline for this event as to leave mystery for the inevitable second season, when a reveal would be likely to happen. It got so toxic in the community over this detail to the point that Todd Howard had to make a statement addressing the fact that the bombing happened shortly after the events of New Vegas, and it would in fact not ruin the lore of that game in any possible way.
So basically the fall of Shady Sands, yeah, it doesn't mean a nuke necessarily.
Correct.
Once again, another thing that was easily able to be explained away. There are more examples I can give, but for the sake of time, I'm going to leave it there. All of that was said so that you can get a good idea of things that don't make sense at all in Fallout at first, but with a little bit more context, can easily turn out to actually fit quite well. Now, here's where Fallout New Vegas makes absolutely zero sense at all, and in no way can be explained away other than one theory I might have to justify it, but even then, it's an extreme stretch of the imagination to force myself to believe this is at all possible. As we all know, our main character, Courier 6, had been shot in the head by Benny while being held hostage and robbed for the platinum chip that was supposed to be delivered to the Lucky 38 casino in the New Vegas Strip. A brief rundown from the Fallout wiki describes the ambush made on the Courier by Benny and the Cons as the following. When their route passed near Good Springs, they were ambushed by Benny, the rogue leader of the chairman, and a hired group of great Cons. The Courier was knocked out during the attack, and while unconscious, they were moved to the Good Springs Cemetery, and regained consciousness soon after the Cons had finished digging a grave to bury them in. Benny then gave a brief speech to the Courier, blaming their fate on bad luck, then shot them in the head twice in an attempt to murder them. They were then buried in the grave the Cons had prepared, but survived long enough for Victor, a Securitron under Mr. House's control, to come and dig them out. They were operated on by Doc Mitchell, the resident doctor of Good Springs, who then monitored the Courier's recovery over the following days. In the Fallout New Vegas 2010 cinematic trailer, we see a screen turn on. The camera starts to zoom out and an image is made clear on the screen. It is that of a cowboy, our good old pal Victor. The further we pan out, we can see that Victor is digging up the Courier from their grave in the Good Springs Cemetery. Seems pretty Pretty normal, right? This is exactly how it goes down in the game. We get shot in the head and buried. Victor then comes to our rescue and digs us up and brings us to Doc Mitchell to be saved, and then the game begins. But there is a major issue with this trailer, which is clearly canon to the game, as there would be zero reason for it not to be. Well, what is it? Look at Victor, slowly removing the dirt from our courier, barely picking up any dirt to begin with. And most of the dirt he picks up simply falls through his claw back down onto the courier. Victor is making barely any progress, and for someone to survive 2 gunshots to the head, a bit of urgency would be needed in order for them to even remotely have a chance at survival. We can't simply chalk up these shots to the head as a simple graze of the bullet, as we know through dialogue that these bullets have given our character some sort of memory loss. As well as in Old World Blues, one of the DLCs for Fallout New Vegas, the courier is revealed to have a special brain condition due to being shot in the head in just the right spot and surviving. Therefore, myself and I'm sure many others can easily come to the conclusion that New Vegas is quite literally impossible. The courier didn't survive. Look at their body in the trailer. It's stiff. This happens to bodies that have been dead for quite some time. And in the game, they make no mention of you being dead and brought back to life, simply that you were saved from a critical injury. Now, before people go freaking out in the comments that this clearly isn't Courier 6, or this obviously isn't the Goodsprings Cemetery, it's gotta be a different scenario, I'm here to tell you that you are wrong. Victor wasn't just casually going around to random graveyards trying to dig up random people. Victor was programmed by Mr. House to make sure the platinum chip was safely returned to him, which is why Victor can be seen following us to various locations throughout the course of the game as we make our journey to the Strip on our quest to track down Benny. The only other explanation I can give as to why our main character was able to survive being knocked out, then awoken, only to then be shot in the head 2 times, and then buried for presumably hours with how slow Victor was removing the dirt off of us, is that the courier is in fact a Gen 3 synth. Created in the Institute with the main goal being to see what a synthetic courier could do for the wasteland. It's not like we haven't seen theories like this thrown around before, right? Look at the main character of Fallout 4. You wake up in Vault 111, a cryogenic vault, with the only memories you have being the day the bombs fell. Why do we suddenly have memory loss when it comes to every single memory we've ever had when it comes to our life pre-war? But the only thing we can remember is the day the bombs fell and then Kellogg showing up and killing our spouse. That doesn't really seem to make sense, does it? In the Far Harbor DLC, Dima even makes you question if you're a synth at one point, throwing tough questions your way that even hints at the possibility that you just might be one. So, the main character of Fallout 4 is a synth, and now the main character of New Vegas is one too. That's the only possible theory I could think of for the courier. And even then, I'm trying as hard as I can to stretch the theory as to how we survived. Being a synth would explain how we resisted being shot in the head and didn't bleed out for hours, and it will also give us a reason as to why our character is just overall so strong over the course of the game. But once again, I'm reaching here. I just don't see how there is a logical explanation as to how we legitimately were able to survive the introduction of the game. New Vegas was all a dream sequence if you asked me, and if anything does change in the Fallout TV show during Season 2 when we go to New Vegas that didn't happen in the game, it's all because New Vegas never happened to begin with. I find it funny when New Vegas fans bash on Fallout 4, 76, and now the show for things that don't make sense, or are errors to the logic of the universe of Fallout, picking apart every last detail of the thing they are critiquing, but then we see a moment like this, where all logic points towards New Vegas not being possible at all, and all we could chalk it up to? A great big kick in the head.